Really nice to be here in New York. The last time I was in New York at the Village Zendo, I remember walking out onto the street and there were so many people shopping, you could barely walk down the street. There was just thick with people going in and out of all the Gaps and the Banana Republics and all the stores that are in the neighborhood there. It was very exciting. Everybody was quite excited. And I remember I wanted to have a cup of coffee, but you couldn't find any coffee places. They were all only clothing places. I eventually found one, but it was hard to find. Anyway, it's nice to be in New York while I'm sitting here in my home in California. I'm all over the place these days. It's kind of nice to visit anywhere in the world, but I never go anywhere. And maybe it's always that way, and the rest is somehow illusory. Anyway, the title of my talk tonight, which I know because I looked it up on your website, is what is the body? That's a good question. What is the body? Of course, we all think we know. But the first thing that came to my mind when I asked myself that question is the story that you probably all know from the Blue Cliff record about the two monks paying a condolence call. And one of the monks raps on the casket and says, "Alive or dead?" And his teacher says, "I won't say, I won't say." We think we know what the body is, but actually we can't say. We just sat a little bit of zazen, and this last week I was sitting a sesshin with our Red Cedar community, Zen community in Bellingham, Washington, a week-long sesshin. And we didn't do anything all week but just sit and breathe and pay attention to our body, sitting, standing, walking, lying down. And everything slows down, as you all know, and you feel the breath coming and going. And you realize that every breath illuminates the whole body. It's the whole body that's breathing, and the body really is breath. If there's no breath, the body as we know it is not any longer that. Sensation comes and goes, thoughts, sounds, everything coming and going. And it's all the body, right? It's all the body. The sound is the body. Taste of food is the body. The Heart Sutra says all dharmas are empty. Emptiness is form, form is emptiness. The body is form, the body is empty. All dharmas are insubstantial, fleeting. We are not here in the way we imagine that we are. And this becomes more and more personal the older you get. Being alive is a precious mystery. The body is a strange and marvelous, I don't know what, opportunity, journey, koan. We really don't know what the body is. Here's a wonderful poem that somebody in our sesshin told me about. It's a poem of Robert Creeley, one of the great American poets of the 20th century, and one of my favorite poets. It's called "The Plan is the Body." The plan is the body. There is each moment a pattern. There is each time something for everyone. The plan is the body. The mind is in the head. It's a moment in time, an instant, second, the rhythm of one, and one, and one, and one, the two, the three, the plan is in the body. Hold it an instant in the mind, hold it. What was said, you said. The two, the three times in the body. Hands, feet, you remember. I remember. I speak it. Speak it. The plan is in the body. Times you didn't want to, times you can't think, you want to, you. Me, remember, me, here, me, wants to, me, am thinking of you. The plan is the body. The plan is the body. The sky is the sky. The mother, the father. The plan is the body. Who can read it? Plan is the body. The mind is the plan. I speaking. The memory gathers like memory. Plan. I thought to remember. Thinking again. Thinking. The mind is the plan of the mind. The plan is the body. 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 So I've been having, everything is strange during the pandemic, right? And I don't know how it happened, actually. I really don't. But during the pandemic, like in the last 3 or 4 months, I've had 3 books come out, almost all at the same time. I don't know how that happened. And there's another one coming and one coming after that, all in the pipeline. So it's a little odd. But one of them, most of them are poetry books, so they're very, very easy to write, not that many words in them. So in March came out my book, Nature, poetry, one long sustained poem. In April came out, There Was a Clattering As, which is a pandemic poem, one long sustained poem with poetry and prose forms. And then in May, at the end of May came When You Greet Me, I Bow. And so there's an essay in that book called What is the Body? And I want to share a little bit. I'll read a few excerpts from that essay for you, but just a little bit about the book. I'm not sure, but I think that Melvin McLeod, who's been longtime editor of the Shambhala Sun, now the Lion's Roar magazine, he always asked me to write essays, for the magazine, and I always do that when he asks me. And not long ago, he said, well, we should collect all your essays into a volume. I think he had that idea for a long time, and it seemed too hard to do, to track down all those pieces that were already published. But one of our Sangha members, Cynthia Schrager, who's a brilliant reader of texts, she has her doctorate in English, and she's really a wonderful reader and sort of knows how to see what's in a text, in a way that most of us don't. So she did this. She found all my published essays, some of which she had to find by going to the attic of the editor of the magazine that was defunct, ever since the internet kind of, and find the hard copies of these things. She found it all and made a selection of a whole bunch of essays. And then, this is the amazing thing, she figured out that they fit into 4 categories, that all these years I've really been thinking in 4 kind of different categories about Dharma. And so they're in the category. Here, I'll just very briefly tell you the 4 categories. The first one is relationship. The second one is emptiness. The third one is culture. And the fourth one is engagement. So she organized the essays that, they'd all been published before into those 4 categories. And then she says, it would really be good if you did some new writing. And why don't we have you write notes to these 4 sections, so you can reread, the essays in those 4 sections, and then you can write contemporaneous notes, and you can say whether you agree with yourself now or how things are different now than when you wrote that, and so on and so on and so on. And that seemed like such a fun thing to do, really easy. I didn't have to think through, big profound themes. I could just be very personal. So I did that. I wrote a section of notes preceding each of these 4 sections of the book, which is why the subtitle of the book is Notes and Reflections from a Life in Zen. So the essay on what is the body comes from the section on emptiness. So I'm going to read you, I'm not going to read you the whole essay, and I'll read you some selected paragraphs from it, and hopefully it'll sort of hang together and make sense. What is your body? This was published in 2013. We think about our bodies all the time. How do they look? What is their state of health? Are they aging? Are they sufficiently strong, attractive, impressive? These questions churn out an almost endless stream of thinking, feeling, and spending. Consider all the clothing, beauty products, food products, accessories, books, equipment, therapists, health products, body workers, and so on that make up a serious portion of our economy. It all depends on the body. Everything depends on the body. Without the body, what are we? Nothing. We have all these transcendent concepts like soul, higher self, true self, Buddha nature. But is there any meaning to these concepts without a body? So the body really matters, but what is the body? We take the body completely for granted, the way we take the sky for granted and the earth. Yet like the sky and the earth, the body is much more than we know. what we think of as our body, what we feel, what we imagine, what we dream about, what we worry about, what we often feel not good enough about, is not actually what the body is. Then there's the idea of like you, like me, it's my body. But who is the person outside the body who says that body is mine? It's the body who says my body, right? It's the tongue and the brain and the lips and the teeth that say my body and the vocal cords, right? The body is saying my body. So who is the other person over there who's saying it's my body? And how do you look at your body? Do you look out at the body from the body's eyes? But that doesn't make any sense. Maybe you see a reflection, but then that's like looking at a portrait in a portrait gallery. Any portrait could be you. Then again, isn't the body, as we feel in Sesshin and in Zazen, actually a flow of ongoing experiences? Seeing, hearing, sensing, tasting, smelling, thinking. But even that's problematic, because when you taste something, like, what is the tasting? I mean, is it in the tongue? Is it in the brain? Is it in the piece of fruit that you just are tasting? What's going on there? And then we have this idea of awareness, which seems to be foundational, right, to being a person, because you're aware that you're a person. Awareness is by definition not a physical thing. It's not the body. But where would awareness be? Is it like somehow trapped inside the body? If it's inside the body, then there's nobody outside of that says it's my body. If it's outside the body, awareness is outside the body, that doesn't make any sense, right? It couldn't be like that. So this idea of awareness is a very contradictory idea. It doesn't really, even though we feel like we're experiencing it, it doesn't really make any sense. The early Buddhist practitioners were very interested in all this stuff. It's not just me, you know. They were interested in all this. It was very important to them, actually, because it had to do with the process, the project of ending suffering. That's why they were interested in this. So in the Abhidharma, which is a very detailed and actually quite amazingly sophisticated and modern psychology from, I don't know, 200 or 300 years BC, they analyzed, not by using microscopes and fMRI machines, but through subjective exploration. They figured out that there is no such thing as the body per se. There is just a variety of momentary mental events. Some of these momentary mental events are based on something that we would consider to be physical. That's where the form part of form and emptiness comes from. It's rupa, a physical basis. But when I'm sitting in zazen and I have a pain, as you can see, I'm not really reading the essay. I'm just, and when we're sitting in zazen and we have a pain in our back, right? We say, oh, I have a pain in my back hurts. Then we think, what's wrong with my back? I better go to see my chiropractor. Maybe there's something busted in there. I get an operation, blah, blah, we think. But what's really going on there? A pain in your back is a mental event, right? It's a mental event that gives rise to thoughts and emotions. And it's a mental event that, yes, is connected to a physical basis, which we call my back. Whether it is your back is another story, but we call it my back. And all perceptions, all experiences inside the body, or so-called outside the body, when I'm hearing the bird, these are all mental events, according to the Abhidharmas. Even rupa is an aspect of consciousness, although a different kind of consciousness than a thought. What's the difference? You can break something that is rupa consciousness. You cannot break something that is not rupa consciousness. So a thought is like absolutely indestructible. It comes, it goes, nobody can step on it and break it in half. But anything that's rupa can be broken. That's why it's rupa, but it's just a form of consciousness. So there's no body, only the continuous flow of momentary conscious events. Nevertheless, we have to admit that the idea that we all have, my body, is pretty compelling, right? Somebody hits you with something and you worry about your body, you've got a concussion or something, you go to the doctor. We take a lot of care for our bodies, as we should. Plus, the idea of the body is reinforced by every single thing we've ever experienced in our lives. Everybody around us is telling us that's you, that's your body. If we were to deny that, we would be like some kind of an insane person. Not only that, but our whole system of language is based on the metaphor of the body. And most of our feelings and commonplace ideas about our lives are based on the metaphor of the body. It's a very foundational thought to us, even though the way we hold that thought and understand it is really not what's going on. So now let's zoom back, pretend it's the night of enlightenment. The Buddha is now sitting on the enlightenment seat. And Mara comes to the Buddha, because Mara hates the idea that Buddha would become awakened. It's very bad for Mara that the Buddha would become awakened, and even worse, tell other people how to awaken. So the Mara is trying to prevent this from happening. And what does he do? Think about it. He uses the body as a way to dissuade the Buddha from awakening. First, he tries, the positive path. He tries to, all the wonderful allurements. Don't get awakened and give up all this wonderful food and all this luxuries and beautiful maidens playing celestial flutes. Don't give all this up. But that doesn't work. The Buddha is not impressed by this. So then he goes the other way. All the horrible demons and monsters that are going to beat the Buddha up and crush his body and hurt him in every single way if he doesn't give up this quest for enlightenment. So Mara is one after another bringing all these forces to bear to try to talk the Buddha out of awakening. And then finally he says, okay, look at all these, between the dancing maidens and the sumptuous feasts and the horrible monsters and the guys with arrows ready to shoot you and all the tough guys ready to beat you up. Look at them all. That's what I got on my side. What do you have on your side? And that's the famous moment when the Buddha touches the earth. And in touching the earth, the Buddha dispels Mara, and all of Mara's minions instantly disappear. And now the Buddha is ready finally to get down to the real work of awakening. Well, what is that? Touching the earth. And why is it such a big deal? In the sutras, maybe it's like the earth goddess quakes all the worlds and scares Mara away. But actually, I think what the Buddha is saying here, with his gesture is that the earth is my body. My body is an expression of the earth. My body is produced and supported by the earth at every single moment. There's nothing in my body, not a single element, that is not also found in the earth. And so nothing on earth, no matter how frightening, can ever harm this indestructible earth body. Even if it were broken up into innumerable pieces, as it will be someday, nothing will ever be lost. It will just be dispersed. It will just be joining with other molecules of earth. It will go home to its mother, the earth, who gave birth to it, and who is embracing it now, protecting it right now. That's what the Buddha was saying. So when we practice zazen, we're profoundly practicing with the body. There's different ways of practicing, as you know, and within the Zen school, some schools are focusing on koan and so on. But in my case, in our Soto Zen school, from Suzuki Roshi's teaching and Dogen's teaching, all we do is pay attention to the body. That's the only thing we do when we practice. We don't think about a koan. We don't think about some spiritual idea. We don't think about a sutra. We just breathe and sit in the present moment of being alive in this body, on this earth, with whatever occurs in that moment. And that is already our awakening. Just being alive, truly and fully being alive in this physical body. That's our awakening. One of the deepest themes in Western philosophy, beginning with Plato and probably before Plato, is the thought that this corrupt and messy world of appearances can't possibly be real. So the job of the intellect, the job of the spirit, is to carry us beyond this corrupt physical world to a perfected world of non-material form, purely mental or spiritual. The kingdom of God is beyond this world. Plato's forms are perfection beyond this world. And this was the theme of both philosophy and religion until lately, when we have the late 20th century, mid to late 20th century phenomenologists who probably were influenced by Buddhism, which never did have a mind-body split to begin with. And the phenomenologists begin to examine, just like the Abhidharmists did, our actual experience. And so in these earth-threatened times, when none of us can afford not to think about and care about the future well-being of the planet, it is fitting that we begin to learn and enact the truth that has always been engraved on our very skins. The truth that body, mind, spirit, and earth are one expression, one concern, and one delight. So that's my thinking today about what is the body. Thank you for listening to me. And